All right, I just hit record. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. We would like to welcome you to our senior living options and senior living resources discussion this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. We have two amazing community resources that we wanted to share with you today. And the goal is because as I myself am embarking on the process of starting to help my parents who are heading into, their late 60s, of trying to navigate what are the resources that are available out there, in our community. And I realized that someone else told me, and I think it's a very, very accurate description, it's a black hole. I think there's so much information out there, and usually I am pretty good about kind of getting things sorted and figured out. But what I found, it was just very overwhelming. So the goal for me being, the realtor in our community is to kind of put some of these resources in a spotlight to help our community, depending on what they're looking for, and highlight and introduce you to a couple of resources every week. So that way if you are working on something for your family members, for your parents, or if you're doing research for yourselves, the goal is to help you and make it a little bit easier for everyone. My name is Olga St. Pierre. I am a senior specialist and real estate agent in our community. Our team services both New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So we've been in the industry for over 12 years. And one of the things that I'm truly passionate about is being a local community resource. What we hear and see that clients talk to us about, that they hear on TV, maybe on the national media as well as social media, we try to help them and bring it down and share with them what's available here in our local community. So that really is truly the goal to our community workshops that we conduct. And that's why we're here today. So what we're talking about today is a couple of options. We have Dave Bailey with us that is going to discuss his the community that he works in, and what to consider, what to know, what's important, because he is a pro at what he does. And then we will then introduce you to Soni as well and talk about what their agent advisors group does for our community as well. So Dave, I welcome you to the workshop and just wanted to introduce yourself, please, to everyone. Let us know where your communities are located, and then let us know what's important to know. What, this is when you meet with clients, what do you want them to know?
Olga, you froze up for a second. There we go.
I'll take it. Yes, please take it away.
My name is Dave Bailey. I am a community sales director at Brightview, Mount Laurel, located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. First and foremost, I am an advocate for seniors. As I like to say, I'm just 10 steps behind them. Certainly on this call of one of being the presenters, I am probably closer to some of you listening, closer to your age, and everyone that walks in the store looking for help. It is my job to help them. If I can help them move into this community, that's great. But if I can help point them in the right direction of all of the options that are out there, that's my job first and foremost. It not only creates a great reputation for Brightview, but for myself as well. And hopefully one day when I'm out there in the sea of senior living and I'm lost, I'll run into somebody like myself who's going to help point me in the right direction. When it comes to senior living, there are many different options, and I'm sure Soni will review these as well. But when we talk about the time to leave the home that we're in when it no longer serves our needs, that is when the options start to get a little bit confusing as what senior living is, what's independent living, assisted living, or should my healthcare be in a place where I might need long-term care? And I'll review each of those and what the differences are. Olga, do you want me to keep on going? All right, very good. So senior living is a very broad title that typically talks about anywhere from 55 and over communities to long-term care in a skilled nursing setting. Many people, as I'm probably going to say this myself. When I pass, I want to pass in my own home, and you're going to have to take me out feet first. And when it comes to assisted living, most people think, well, I don't want to be a part of a club that's going to have me as a member. Most of the time when we have to make a choice to leave our home because it no longer suits our needs, what we all really want is to turn the clock back 20 years. And since I haven't found that clock yet, I have to move forward with what's going to be best for me and my own life. So sometimes leaving the home simply means that I had a home with 5 kids. I had a 4-bedroom house. It was a split level. And now I'm at a place where I've fallen a few times trying to get up the stairs. And basically I live on 1 floor. And this house that served my family very well no longer serves me and my needs. So I'm going to downsize from here. Sometimes going to a rancher in a 55 plus community is the next right step. So that pool that you had out in the backyard for the grandkids, that for the past 3 years, they never showed up all summer long? You can leave all that behind when you move to the 55 plus community. You can have a small yard and you can have a community pool. And here's where the living part of senior living really takes place. Once you move into a community, whether it's the 55 plus or independent living, you have amenities that are available to you, but that are managed on a community level. Not by you. Sometimes you don't have to cut your own grass. Somebody will do that for you. All you have to maintain is the inside of the apartment or the home that you live in. And somebody else does all of the heavy lifting. So moving into the 55 plus community, sometimes it's a condo. Sometimes it's actually a home that you buy, but most of the maintenance is included in a separate fee. My area of expertise, though, is when you move into independent living or assisted living. And this is actually a building, a community. Many times looks like a very fancy apartment home, but you almost get treated more like a bed and breakfast, where we provide meals, some housekeeping. In assisted living, there's 3 meals a day. In independent living, there's usually 1 meal and a continental breakfast. But all of the property needs are taken care of. In assisted living, most places will even do your laundry for you. So independent living, you move into an apartment, the grounds are taken care of, we'll maintain the property, you just enjoy your life there. The cost, though, to independent living varies. Remember, you're no longer paying taxes on a property. You don't have to pay any of the utilities. That's usually all included. And the maintenance is all taken care of for you. Depending upon the size and the neighborhood that you're moving into, independent living can run anywhere from $3,000 a month to about $6,000 a month if you're paying individually on a month-to-month rental basis. Now, I'm going to complicate this by also telling you that there are some communities that you buy into. And those buy-in communities want you to buy an apartment. And you will actually purchase the apartment. And then when it comes time for you to leave that community or that apartment, they will buy that apartment back. But there's an actuary table that when they buy that apartment back, it will be at a much lesser rate than what you first purchased it. There's also monthly fees that typically go along with those buy-ins. I sometimes direct people away from a buy-in community because if you're working with a month-to-month rental property, as most independent living and assisted livings are, should your children tend to pick up and move. So Olga has parents who live down the shore. But one day Olga's going to say to her parents, you know what, Florida is a much better location for me, and I have a great business that I'm buying into. And her parents no longer want to live here in South Jersey. They want to be where Olga is. If they had bought in and invested into one of these properties, it's very difficult to then sell and move out of and get all of the money that you invested back. If you're in a month-to-month rental property, you simply give a 30-day notice and they'll help you move on to the next place. So those are some options to think of. When you're looking at assisted living now is a place where you have all of the property conditions taken care of for you, but you also have personal care that can be dedicated to you. So I want to think of a time when I might need help in my own personal apartment, or maybe even in a restroom. And here is when I'm going to need personal care, or what we call activities of daily living: bathing, dressing, medication management, grooming, somebody to comb my hair, somebody to tell me that I have hair growing out of my ears and they can come and clip it for me because my vision is impaired. Possibly my hearing is impaired as well, and I need some direction during the day. An assisted living community can provide me with a great lifestyle. Again, a community that's filled with neighbors and friends, but I have a small apartment, typically a studio apartment, anywhere from 300 to 400 square feet. But I have the entire community to live in. I have a dining room that I can dine in with friends. I have a game room where I can go and play bowling shuffleboard. I have a movie room that I can go and enjoy movies in. And somebody else is cleaning it and maintaining it. I just get to enjoy it. And this comes at a cost as well. So you'll pay a cost for your residence, and you'll also pay a cost for care. Again, depending upon where the community is and the level of service that you need, costs can range anywhere from $4,500 a month to upwards of $10,000 a month. So remember, if I'm walking in this community today and I can't remember to take my medication, I'm going to need a lot less help than the woman who lives across the hall from me, who still manages her own finances and plays with her computer to manage her investments, but she's in a wheelchair, and we give her a bath in bed, and we're changing her incontinence products 5 times a day. That woman will pay a higher level of care for the services that she requires than I will pay. What this all comes down to is, how do we start to plan for this? Is there a plan? And who can help me with that plan? So the first is, unfortunately, just like all of our parents told us, have you saved up for a rainy day? Because not only is it going to start to rain, but for some of us, it's going to start to pour. And none of us plan on getting sick. None of us plan on needing a wheelchair or a walker. But chances are, if we live long enough, we might need some assistance. Not everybody, but some of us will. Some of us are going to need the assistance of another person. And it's nice to know that the care is out there, but it does come at a price. The way that many people start to plan and prepare for this time of their life is by looking at their largest investments. Typically, the first investment is their home. What's the value of my home? And have I kept my home up? Is it in a good condition to sell? Will I be able to sell my home quickly when I need to? Or will my home sit on the market for 5 months because of the work that I didn't put into it? Nobody knows what the market will bear at the time we're ready to sell, but we can make estimates based on what our purchase price is and how the cost of living has increased. So for a single person, if your home has been paid off and it might yield you a profit of $250,000, you're going to utilize that money to help pay for the rest of your life. You also want to consider what your monthly income is and calculate that in the number of years that you're looking to plan ahead for in your care. Some people, as Soni will probably share with us, have purchased into a long-term care insurance policy. Soni, will you be covering that?
I will.
Very good. So she'll talk more about that. There's also some help from the Veterans Administration should you need physical help and medical help. And then there's also something called Medicaid. But for the purposes of today, I'm going to focus on the costs of putting together a plan for assisted living. The average resident moving into assisted living is about 84 years old. The average amount of time that someone will spend in assisted living is just a little over 2 years. Most people are making this decision very late in life to move into assisted living. And at the time, they typically have some challenges surrounding their life. It doesn't mean that people haven't lived here for over 10 years. They certainly have. But you can imagine the people who've been putting this off, who have broken the second hip. They might be in the very tender stages of renal failure. They might be on dialysis. And now they finally decide that they need some help. They move into assisted living, and unfortunately, their time here is cut short. All of the wonderful things that we talked about from a community perspective, of sharing time and company, eating in a dining room with others, having your friends just outside your door, they never get to experience. And they typically pass very quickly because they've made the decision so late in life. So those people might only be here a month versus the people who've been here 10 years. And on the average, we say it's about 2 years that somebody will spend in assisted living. So the things to look into are a veteran's benefit to see if you might qualify. Even if you are the spouse of a veteran, you can inherit that benefit from your spouse. That can pay anywhere from $1,100 a month to about $1,700 a month in assisted living or even for home care. You also want to take a look at any liquid assets that you have and make sure that they are invested wisely. And there are also people who can help you plan for this. But on an annual basis, someone will probably spend anywhere from $70,000 to $90,000 a year in assisted living. And again, if your annual income is about $30,000, you might only be borrowing or taking $40,000 a year from whatever your liquid assets would be. And again, probably the majority of that is going to be the sale of a home. You might have a 401k, or believe it or not, there are still people out there who have pensions. Most of us younger people don't know what that is. We hear about it. We don't know what that is. We have monies invested in 401ks, but those pensions and Social Security might add up to over $3,000 a month. So when you start to plan this out, you want to plan for the best life that you possibly can. And certainly if you have a long-term care insurance policy, you're going to tap into that first because you've made a big investment into that policy. So Soni, I'm going to pass this on to you for now, and we can certainly come back for questions later. Is that good, Olga?
That's perfect. Yes.
All right, very good.
Copious notes. There's lots of info here. So thank you. Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Soni Pahade. I run a care management company in Mercer County, but we serve the surrounding areas, including into Bucks County. Some people aren't familiar with the geriatric care manager. We're also called aging life care professionals. We work as a guide and an advocate for a senior and their families. So I wish I could be very straightforward and say I do blank, but every situation is different. So what our expertise is called for is different. Dave did a great job explaining the different types of senior living communities. And I might get called into that phase where a family is saying, I don't think my loved one can remain at home. What level of care do they need? And where would you recommend? I'll use today as an example. My first call was somebody who was in the hospital. We had been researching where she could move. She absolutely refused to leave the hospital to go anywhere. So she wants to return home. We can't force her to go anywhere. What things are we going to put in place for her to stay home until the time comes that she needs to move? Another call was somebody in the hospital who needs to be released to rehab, and they got a list from a social worker, and they have no idea which are the places that are good for them and which ones aren't. As I helped the family, I realized the insurance that they had limited a lot of their choices. So instead of having the family call, I went ahead and called the different facilities that I'm aware of that have a good reputation and set that up for them to feed to the social worker to make their life easier and make sure the loved one gets into the right place. We also go to the hospital with our clients. Right now, the hospitals are allowing one advocate into the hospital, into the ER. So I got a call from somebody who is going to the ER. I have minimal involvement with them normally because they live in an independent apartment, but I am on call for their services. And we also have clients where I do anything a family member would do, including a tree fell on the house. He's hard of hearing, and I've been negotiating with the insurance company on their behalf. So a lot of times my calls are, they notice something is going on with the loved one, a neighbor, and they're not really sure what to do. And they're not even sure what options they have in terms of making the decision for them. So originally we'll start with what kind of paperwork is in order. If they need to see a lawyer, who is the lawyer they should see? What is a financial plan? What is their financial goals? You know, you do need to prepare for moving into a community in a variety of factors, not just financially. Is the person social? Is living at home, even if it's their wish, the right choice for them? And working as a partner with my client, who is the senior, to explain to them why they need to move and helping them see that we are trying to put as many things in place for them to stay home. Now, some people are able to stay home. I have a 100-year-old client who's in his own home, bringing in a lot of services. That's not always financially feasible for everyone. If you want it, the nice thing about our area is that you can get almost any service at home, visiting doctors, x-rays, lab work, home care. If you are finding that home care is needed, how do you know what home care to choose? If you type in home care on the internet, you will get 100 paid advertisements first. So a care manager is a private pay service. We usually charge by time served. Rates can vary from $125 to $200 an hour, depending on who you're using. Long-term care insurance does cover some care management services. Dave said to talk a little bit about long-term care insurance, and usually someone will have signed up for long-term care insurance before 65 when the rates are a little bit more reasonable. I recommend that anybody go through a reputable broker because there are so many different plans out there. I made that recommendation for my parents. They have a policy that they get some money back if they don't use it. I made them verify that it covers all services. Some only do nursing home and home care and bypass assisted living, or they have a daily rate at the assisted living that is really not comparable to what it costs. And, you know, a facility will help you determine those rates. You know, Dave was saying that how they can help you, but they're really looking at what is your income coming in, what are your assets, what are your interests, what are your pensions, and giving you a very concrete number so you can plan accordingly. For some people, having a live-in to stay with someone 24 hours a day is a good start. And some people may say, this is the same price as assisted living, but in an assisted living, I can have much more social engagement. And the comfort of knowing that as needs increase, there are people there. So an assisted living will have people around, but you have your own apartment and you only have people come in when you need services, where some people in their own homes don't want someone in their space. Now, I do have a client whose caregiver is a live-in who must spend all of their time in the room and only come out when she's resting. It's very difficult for everyone involved. She's just not the right candidate for assisted living. I have another gentleman, he's planning the deposit is down in assisted living because he's very lonely. So it's not even about the level of care, but the anticipation is the level of care is going to come and he will not have to be disrupted once he's, you know, because he's already moved and moving at a time where he might not have as much of an opinion about what he wants to do. So aging life care managers are across the country. They do not accept any outside referrals from anybody, not an assisted living, not a home care company. So we can really spend our time making sure you're getting the best option of where to go. So if you live in Mount Laurel and you're looking for a place to go and you have family nearby or friends, a lot of times I don't want to leave my friends who live in the area, then our recommendation would be Brightview. If you live somewhere else and I made a recommendation for a family and I said, I think your move should really be to move this person out of the area closer to you. Not to just go on about the aging life care, but just to really talk about that there are a lot of options for whatever your wishes are. It is not an either or that you have to do this and you have to do that. And there are people to help you. So sometimes you can call someone just in times of crisis and say, this one family, I need to move to rehab and long-term care. That will most likely be the only involvement. And then the nursing home will take over. Or if it's an assisted living, I might call Dave and say, okay, I have somebody, this is what's going on. We would talk ahead of time to save a family from a lot of those calls. And then they can move forward in the good hands of an assisted living. So that's a little bit about what I do. It might start with staying home and renovations that need to be made, all the way to long-term care. And we do the weekly visits to check in on someone to make sure they're getting good care. And I am open to questions as well, because like I said, nothing is black and white.
So it sounds like you're more in a consultancy role where you assess where the client is now and what they're looking to do. And then based on that, you can help them create some kind of a flexible plan, or maybe recommend something now and then suggest to them things down the road.
Yeah, so usually I make a care recommendation plan, and it will have needs that are immediate and what to anticipate. I don't normally recommend which facility to go to at the time when someone doesn't need one, but I will outline and define in writing what do the different facilities offer, so that you can see that there are choices in the pipeline. And when you really can't stay at home. There are just certain situations where staying home isn't just not ideal. And when you should start looking. But it is definitely like a consultant, but I like to say a partner. My goal is to help somebody with the recommendations and they go off on their own and everything works out well. But sometimes it might be 6 months of things going well and then something changes. And hopefully people have a team. I always recommend researching assisted livings or meeting a home care agency ahead of time so you're not caught in crisis. Because if a facility is familiar with you and you are comfortable with them and you understand everything involved, that transition is filled with a lot less of anxiety.
In my experience, where I get involved is where there's crisis happening and they have to have things taken care of quickly. And I found that sometimes it's very, very stressful, more stressful than needed. So if somebody was to start making plans, right, and the parents maybe in their mid-60s, where do you think are maybe your top 3 things where you would recommend them, whether it's, the parents or like myself, I am the child of my parents with my sister, to start planning, looking into, so that way we are prepared and ahead of the game?
I can answer, and then Dave too, because I think he gets a lot of people right on that verge. I mean, what we talk about first with the family is the education of making sure the documentation. I cannot stress that enough. If you wanted to move into a facility and you don't have your power of attorney and your healthcare power of attorney in order, that is going to delay many things, because a power of attorney uses somebody's own funds for them. A power of attorney doesn't mean you're using your personal funds. It means you are authorized to use the senior's funds for their needs. The next thing would be to do a safety check of the home. If somebody's broken a hip and they have stairs to climb, there's no bathroom on the first floor. Really making it very clear that that is going to be a situation that's going to arise that needs to be addressed. Some people can afford to make that renovation. Sometimes people who are living in their home might realize, oh, I remember so-and-so and they couldn't get up the stairs and I don't want that to be me. And then looking at if they are moving, well, a lot of times it might be home care first. And then depending on how that goes, where people have an issue with someone in their space, then it's, if you're moving, what level of care do you need and where are you going? What do you want? Do you need the anticipation of your needs increasing, and what level of care can your assisted living provide if they don't have a connection with a nursing home? What can you financially afford? Who do you need to see legally to talk about your assets? And then if you're going, sometimes they go on the tours with people because they're not sure if they're missing certain questions they need to ask, or I can help prep them and say, these are the key things for you in particular you're going to need to know. And my hope is that there are people like Dave on the other side who are being really honest and not pushy and saying, this is not going to work for you because you're not ready, or this isn't going to work for you because we can't accept your level of care. Our anticipation is that we could only help you for a month or so, and you'd have to move so that people can prepare. But it's not easy to tell somebody that they should leave their home. So we try, and it's a lot of education about why and not you have to, and let that be someone's choice.
And Soni, if I can just back up a little bit to talk about your parents and the financial planning that they did at not the stage when they were ready to move or needed help, but a plan put in place as they're getting ready towards retirement to what does my financial picture look like and what are going to be the options that are available to me. Many people think here in the state of New Jersey that, you know what, the best thing for me to do is I'll get together with my children, I'll turn over all the assets to them, and I will then go on to Medicaid. And Medicaid is a way to protect finances, to put into your child's name so that the government or an entity doesn't spend down all of those funds. But remember, the less assets you have, the less choices you have. I'm guilty of that as well. I don't want to go someplace where all of my funds that I worked hard for are going to go to waste. But I can tell you that working on this side of the industry, it's not wasted. It's how it can give a senior back a part of their life that they've planned for and that they've saved for. It's nice that you might want to put some funds aside for a child to go to college, and 20 years from now, God knows what college is going to look like. And I don't know if any of us are going to have enough money to get somebody through 4 years, even if we saved our entire lifetime. But that money, most of the time, the adult children will say, Mom or Dad, that money is for you. You worked hard for that, and you deserve to enjoy yourself. So spend that money however you like. The next part of what Soni was talking about is getting paperwork in order. Please be sure that you are seeking out the advice of an elder care attorney. Many people make the mistake, well, I've got a cousin who's an attorney, but what kind of attorney is he? He's a real estate attorney. He'll be able to help me. And usually when the family comes back to me and they say, can you call my cousin to talk to him about this aid and attendance benefit? He doesn't know what that is. Well, you're talking to the wrong attorney, because anyone who has to ask that question isn't the right person to really be speaking to. So make sure that when you go see the attorney and you're investing your money, that you're investing it wisely. That attorney, even if you go with your children and your children have set this appointment up and they're bringing you there, that elder care attorney is there to represent you, not your children. Your children might have.
And I will interrupt. A good elder law attorney will make it a point to speak with you directly. I have had a lot of experiences, and I never recommend an elder law attorney who does not take the person whose the documents are for and speak to them at some point privately to make sure they're not being intimidated. And I know the lawyers who will stop working with somebody if they feel like they are being intimidated into any paperwork. But an elder law attorney can also help you plan if you need to set some money aside for your children, creating a trust, but not taking away your options on where to go. New Jersey's assisted livings usually have a private pay requirement. A lawyer can help you protect some assets legally, so you are not, so nobody's coming after some kind of strange deals that you've made. but you do lose those options. I worked in marketing at a community as well. And there's nothing worse, right, Dave, when somebody comes in and they said, okay, I spent all my assets, I'm ready for care. And you have to look them in the eyes and say, I'm sorry that you didn't have the right advice and we cannot accept you into our community.
Correct. If I may, I'd like to share something on my screen. It's just a little way to calculate some funding. And just searching for it here. It's the monthly cost comparison guide. It's just a great exercise for anybody who's currently living at home and trying to figure out what their monthly costs are and how much they're currently investing in their home, whether they're paying a mortgage or the home is paid for. It's your taxes, your insurance, a homeowners association, what you're paying for cable television, trash removal, if you have any kind of housekeeping, even laundry and linens. And then compare this to what an independent or assisted living has. It kind of puts into perspective what you're paying now and what you're getting and what you can expect to pay for, or in one lump sum, something that would be covered under your one payment for an assisted living or independent living. I've shared this with Olga, and anyone who is looking for a copy of this, you can certainly request that, and either Olga or myself will make sure that you get that. So it's just a nice little tool to take a look at as you're planning for your future. Any questions that I can answer?
From what I understand, a lot of our things when we deal with these kind of plans start with budgeting, and people don't like to do that. So
that's correct.
Is there an age range, perhaps, that either of you, either Dave or Soni, you would recommend for our parents or loved ones to start making some of these, decisions, getting their legal papers in order, maybe doing some research on what are the options for senior living?
I used to give a talk with the Princeton Senior Resource Center about the 2060 or the 40-60 rule, about when you are around 40 and your parents are anywhere from their 60s to 70s to begin the talk. It doesn't have to be sprung on Christmas. Hey, let's have a talk. But there is even a website that talks about some tools to start bringing it up, because even if they refuse to fill out the paperwork originally, you will at least have a much better idea of what their wishes are when the time comes. So that's my recommendation. The sooner the better.
I also suggest, while you're able to, as we spoke before, go see an independent living community today when you don't need one and don't plan on going to one. Go see an assisted living. Go see a few so you understand options that are out there. Many of the communities, when we were in good health, in better times, you could go for a free lunch. And my best referral is when you come in at 70 years old and you don't need this at all, but you had such a great time here that you think about your neighbor across the street, or the people that you don't see at church anymore, people that don't come to temple, and say, gosh, I wonder what happened to Marion. And you know that she might be struggling at home on her own, and you can recommend a community to them. But come and see it sooner than later. Even if you say you're just doing research for your friends. Most people older than myself never experienced assisted living. We never had a grandparent in one. We never went to visit a friend in one. All we know are nursing homes. And many of us know some of those stories about the smell that hits you when you walk in the front door. And whether it's independent living, assisted living, or skilled care, which is a nursing home, most people are afraid to look into this because that's all they think of is the nursing home. Well, there are some great options here for you where you get dressed up every day. You go on a bus ride to Atlantic City. You play at the casino. You go out to lunch at gosh, into Philadelphia for lunch to one of the great restaurants over there, or you go to see theater, or you just enjoy a nice day outside, a picnic with your friends, go fishing in the pond that we have. There's so many options that are available to you that most people will never even look into. So right now, the best thing that you can do for yourself is educate yourself, go and see as much as you can. It's all free. And I hope someday to be retired. I think I'm going to work till I'm 70. But what a great time to just go around and see communities. It'll keep you out of stores. It'll stop you from spending money, and you'll get to educate yourself. It's something great to do when you're retired.
That's a great suggestion, Dave, because I think a lot of people have misconception of what senior living is. I think what you were mentioning, and the things that I recommend to my, baby boomer clients and their families is at least to have a conversation early on, and it's better to have it face to face, and maybe a Christmas gathering may not be the best to do it at, but just have a conversation where you discuss with your loved ones and you lay it all out on the table. What are you afraid of? What would you like to see happen? Who do you want to help? So that way your family knows what your wishes are, because if God forbid something happens to you, the family knows exactly what you're looking for. Where your documentation is, what do you need help with? And it's okay to ask for help. So that's where I tell everyone to start, is just have the conversation with their family on, where you are, what do you want, what are you looking for? And then, then you take Soni's advice and you go from there and you make plans for your paperwork and options and, review your current home situation conditions.
The best time to make a decision is when you don't have to, when you can plan on it. Unfortunately, most of the people that Soni and I see, it's a decision that has to be made and has to be made quickly. But if this is all planned out, if I don't need those services today, maybe I can sit back and make a good educated choice as to what I would want when that time comes.
Wow, lots of information shared today. Well, at this time, I wanted to open it up to other participants. If you have any questions that you would like to ask Soni or Dave, you're more than welcome to unmute yourselves, or if you want to write it in the chat, that would be great.
I think Deb has a question.
I just wanted to thank you so much. My technology is not that great. It's sort of going in and out. If it drops off, it's not because I hung up on you. Just thank you so much. I actually, I'm just approaching 70 years old, but I cared for my parents, my brother, a lot of my family that they've all passed. And I had looked at many places for them for independent living, assisted living. But now and I've never married, I'm single, and I really need to find a place for myself. So that's what, first I thought I was going to just buy a home, and I've never really I've always had just apartment living. And I thought maybe I'll buy a home, but then I thought of it, I'm really at a point where I don't want to be to do shopping. I need, a place where I feel like I'm taken care of in terms of, social activities and food. And so I really appreciate, listening to both of you, Mr. Bailey, and to you, Soni. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I feel like I'm not, I guess I'm, good idea to like start looking, but also I'm just staying, I've been in, I need to go out. So I hope that the situation changes. Maybe if I could see places virtually, or
you can.
Sort of feeling stuck until we're at a better position with the COVID. But I thank you so much for all the information that you both gave. It was so helpful.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for listening. And you certainly can do the virtual visits. Communities are very happy to do that with you, whether they have some things on tape that they can send you, or they can actually take their phones and go through the community and get you to meet residents. You can't smell the food, but you can see the food.
Mm.
So I would schedule a few of those. Again, if you have the time to do it, it's just a little bit of fun that you can have to plan your own future.
Fantastic.
So much. And then also, I was just going to say, in terms of like getting documentation together too, like there's like, I'm really by myself. And I keep thinking, is there someone who can help be like a power of attorney for me? You know, I asked some lawyers, but they say, no, we don't do that. Um, you know, we're
Deb,
just,
you can always contact me off of the webinar and I might be able to direct you in some services. I do have a fair amount of clients who are solo agers, I think that's what you're called. And there are resources for you. You know, there are, my company, because we have nurse care managers and aging care managers, will be healthcare power of attorneys, not financial, but there are offices of people who will do that for you, that you can meet ahead of time while you still can, and make sure you're comfortable with them. That's key. You know, if you don't, there are a lot of legal things and you might not have somebody that you trust to manage that. So you aren't alone. There are resources for you.
oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, Deb, we will send you all the information from today that you can reach out to Soni and see what she has available and what resources are for you. So don't worry.
Oh, thank you, Olga. Thank you so much.
Oh,
It's just a
absolutely.
pleasure. I appreciate it.
My
today.
pleasure. Emily, Heather, anybody else? Anything else that you want to add as we wrap up?
This is Heather. I have one question that I don't know if, well, I'll just say. So when you were talking about the veterans coverage that you can get earlier, it made me think of that my parents are divorced, but they were married long enough that my mother is able to get Social Security based off of my father's income. Are there other, like, would she be eligible for other things like through veterans coverage? Because my father's also a veteran, or just based on the fact that they were married for so long?
Is your father still alive?
Yes.
So the veteran's benefits would go to the veteran first and then could be inherited by a spouse. Typically, they would have to have been married at the time that your mother would inherit the benefit, or at the time of your father's passing for her to inherit the benefit. That is also something to consult with an elder care attorney about. But typically, if they were divorced, she might not be able to pick that up. But the benefit is only inherited by the spouse, not given to the spouse unless the two of them together needed care and were receiving care at home or in a community.
Okay, that makes sense. Are there any other kind of benefits that she could pick up on based off of them being married for so long? Is that something that you would consult a lawyer about?
You certainly would. And typically, that is really the only benefit that I know of that would really be passed along.
Okay, thanks.
You got it, Heather.
And we have a question in the chat box from Emily. She wanted to find out if there's any recommendations for low-income seniors in need of assisted living.
Soni, you want to take that one?
I think it really does depend on where you're looking. There are some assisted livings based on their census or their corporate oversight that will take people on Medicaid, but it really is dependent on where you live. If you're not sure, and you can always call the Office on Aging in your county, and they can point you to some housing communities, but you should really have all of the financial paperwork in order so that it can be provided. And then with an application, because some places have waiting lists.
Uh-huh.
I wish there was just one place I could say you could call, but it really is dependent on where you live.
I'm just wondering, you know how in some townships they have some lower income housing where they have to allot certain number of units for lower income. I'm just wondering if maybe there are some communities, senior communities that maybe have the same thing where they have to allot a certain number of spots, right, or beds.
So typically Medicaid is a government program that just about every assisted living in the state of New Jersey participates in. It is a program where most of us require 2 years of private pay before somebody would utilize that. Here in Mount Laurel, we also have another program called the Mount Laurel Low to Moderate Income Housing Program, which somebody can live off of 80% of their monthly income. But again, we ask that somebody be here for 2 years privately paying before they would take advantage of that benefit. So coming in from the beginning, that's lower income or Medicaid, that'll go community by community. And there are some communities willing to accept Medicaid from the front door.
It's not many, I will say, but there are some.
Good to know. Fantastic.
I will just add to the question that if you were in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania calls their assisted living personal care homes, and none that I know of accept Medicaid in their personal care. It is only in skilled nursing. So I do think if you're looking at assisted livings, I do say, because ideally you will be living on the assisted side longer than the nursing, to stay in New Jersey to take advantage of that benefit if you're already qualified and on Medicaid, if you believe that your needs will be at the assisted living level.
Interesting. All right. Anyone else has anything else as we are heading towards wrapping up our hour? Well, if you think of any other questions, feel free to email us over and then we will forward the questions to Dave and Soni. Thank you so much, both of you. You've been tremendous help, and I took a lot of notes for my own and learned a lot today, which is what I always look forward to. And again, we appreciate you very much and what you do in our community. And we look forward to hopefully working with you soon. So thank you so much. And everybody have a great day. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.